The word of the day is unreliable narrator. So, one thing I don't think that creative writers think about enough is playing around with what narrator they're going to use. And one especially interesting concept is that your narrator doesn't actually have to be trustworthy. And that might sound kind of interesting, but the idea is that it adds this cool layer of will this, won't this happen? It's just kind of, it creates a mystery, right? Which for a lot of readers, they want mysteries solved. So it's a cool way of keeping them hooked. So the opposite of an unreliable narrator is a narrator who's totally credible. So often unreliable narrators, almost always really, they're a character in the story. So unlike a third person narrator, those are narrators who aren't actually a character within the story themselves. So an unreliable narrator, it's usually a first person narrator. They're telling events from their perspective. They might be unreliable for all kinds of reasons. Maybe they have some sort of bias, right? Like think of Harry Potter. If Harry Potter had been told from the perspective of Voldemort, can you imagine how weird that would be? That would completely change the story. It would add this whole layer of complexity and mystery to it. And it might just be because there's some major bias going on. It might also be something even more, I don't know, I want to say sinister, but I don't know if that's the right word. But if your character, if it's being told from their perspective and they're actually mentally unstable, that is fascinating. And for those of you who know a really famous author, his name is Edgar Allan Poe. He has a really famous story called The Telltale Heart. And in this story, this character is the narrator. He's unreliable, though, because he is mentally unstable. He has started to kind of lose grasp on reality. And turns out that he had, sorry for the spoiler alert, he had murdered somebody and then hid their body underneath his floor. And he is starting to think that he can hear the heartbeat of his poor victim, and that he's walking around late at night and he's hearing this heartbeat, and it's making him more and more unstable. It's freaking him out more and more. But as the reader, it's interesting for us because we don't know what's real or not and what's him being unstable or losing it or not. And that's kind of fascinating. It doesn't have to be that sinister either. So in the recent Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes Hunger Games movie, it's the whole story is about President Snow and his background. And um, President Snow basically, like, he is the narrator in that story, and he is unreliable because he makes a lot of bad decisions. And his decisions kind of compound on each other, right? I did this, and then I did this, and it led to this bad decision, and that bad decision, I had to try and cover that up, so I had to do this, and now I have to cover that one up too. And in the end, we're not sure what's real or not. And again, it's just kind of fascinating. So they can create really cool plot twists. And for those of you who had sixth grade creative writing, if you remember, plot twist also means peripeteia, or like the fancy creative writing way of saying it is peripeteia. So unreliable narrators are a cool way of leading to that, especially if we're not sure what happens. And then when we find out what was real, that could be a big aha moment. Plus, it can make a character more believable, right? That because we ourselves as humans are fallible, we're not perfect, we make mistakes, that it kind of makes sense that if I have a first person narrator and things are being told from their perspective, then why wouldn't they also be imperfect, right? So, the video today on the vocab assignment is from the author of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and he talks about his decision to make his narrator unreliable on purpose. So make sure you go watch that. Thanks.